to certain people and they go on and on and on, and you're like, I don't even know how they do it. And there really is this secret sauce to getting people to pay attention on social media. And even if you're walking into this really feeling like, I don't know if I got it, I'm here to tell you that there are very, very easy specific steps that I am going to break down for you tonight. And I also want to let you know that by staying on the call right till the end, I have a very, very special offer for you guys. So it's something I've never ever done before. So don't jump off, or if you need to, make sure you go back and go to the recording. You're not going to want to miss it. Okay, so I'm going to start. I'm going to start with a little story here, very appropriate. So the man here on, well, young boy in this photo here on the left, this is my father. In the middle is my Aunt Rosie, and on the right is my Uncle Rick. And I can tell you that all three of them absolutely have this gift of storytelling. Now, in this photo, you may notice that they're all dressed up and they look very cute and proper, and it looks like a pretty great upbringing. The secret behind all of this is that my father grew up quite poor, actually. My grandmother immigrated, or escaped, I guess is a better word, from Germany. She met my grandfather in Ontario. They lived in Cobourg, Ontario, and my great-grandmother actually lived in Port Hope, Ontario. Her apartment is actually still there, the place where she lived, and I remember visiting as a child. And so although my dad's family grew up poor, it was the type of family that when they would come home from school and they would be hungry, it would be like, okay, go to the garden and see what you can find. And I do recall my dad telling me that he grew up on like dirt floors. And at 8 years old, he was going with my grandfather. My grandfather had it was called back then, I don't know if it's a flooring store, but it was called Dixon Flooring Mechanics, which to me was a very male name. Like if I was going to name something and I was like that would have been it, a mechanics flooring company. So that's what my father did, is he worked with my grandfather on weekends and evenings, helping install floor and helping to really support the family. So you may be wondering, okay, so what's the deal with this clothing? Like they look like they grew up very nice, maybe went to a nice private school in the area. What is with this? And so the story behind this is that my great grandmother actually owned this tog shop in Port Hope, Ontario, and she would frequently, which was a big deal at the time, like the 1950s, she would go up to Toronto to do all her buying. And for all the photos of my dad and his siblings, they're all dressed up like this. And you have this kind of portrayal that they had this really like sort of, it looks like in the photos, this lavish upbringing. So the story continues here. This is my great-grandmother's ring. And I actually met up with one of my second cousins 2 days ago, and she lives like just an hour away from me. I'm in Sarnia now. And this ring, as my cousin called it, was my great-grandmother's dinner ring. I didn't know that such thing existed as a dinner ring, but I am pleased by the idea, and it was beautiful. And so this ring ended up in my possession because my dad actually had given it to me, and there was this whole story behind it, because during the Great Depression, my great-grandparents had a very tough time, and it was actually my great-grandmother started to employ my great-grandfather, who was a mechanic at the time. So she employed him at the tog shop, and she bought this with her own money after the Great Depression. And after she was able to get like her family back into assorted order. And so she was an entrepreneur through and through. And my dad saved this ring for me, and he wanted to give it to me. Except that when he went to give it to me, he had mysteriously misplaced it. And he worked at a flooring store. And he had this ring, and he thought he had put it in the safe. And he went to go and check the safe, and the ring was gone. And so he was absolutely devastated. Like, he had a very, very close relationship with his grandmother, my great-grandmother. And he looked everywhere for it. He was devastated by the fact that he could have lost his heirloom. And what happened is he actually went, the last resort, his office was in the very back of the building. He went and had a look, and in his desk, he looked in this secret drawer and there it was. The ring was still there. So that's how it's in my possession now. And so he gave it to me when I was 25 years old. But what he didn't realize is that there were two versions of it. My great grandmother had a version that she would actually wear to dinner, and then a version that she would keep in her jewelry box as well. So the real version of the ring is somewhere in California with one of my great aunts, and I have the replica version, which I like to think she wore more often. So that I was pretty happy with, to have this piece of her. And I feel this great connection with her, knowing that I have this piece of her jewelry. A lot of her things actually were lost in a fire that happened at my grandfather's house. But I feel like I get my entrepreneurial spirit from her. And then there's my father. So this is my father here in the middle. My mother is on his left side there. And the reason that I share this whole story with you is that I really feel that my love for storytelling really starts with my father. And so my dad, his name's Russell, and he's been an entrepreneur since he was very young. He started off in storing floors, then took over that business, and then they bought a gym, which was very fitting because it's like I was born into this industry and then I really never left. Like I just stayed in the fitness industry because that's what I thought everyone did. I thought they wore the leggings, the warm-up tight, like everything. I just thought that was totally normal. And so well, what happened is my dad would go and he would deal with sales all the time. Him and actually my uncle Rick worked there as well at the store, which is now called Dixon Carpet One. And so they do all this home decor type stuff. But my dad had this ability to captivate people when they would come in and they would ask for something. And he would tell these simple stories, like stories that didn't even think was a story. I just thought was a fact. Like you went to the grocery store, end of story, period, then you moved on with your life. That's not how my dad told stories or how he would build these relationships with people. He would talk about the guy that was behind him in line and that fought in the war and that his son was coming to see him and he hadn't seen him in 20 years. It was all of a sudden as if you were scratching away on a lottery ticket where you just think like, oh, there's nothing really there. And then you scratch and there's this whole story behind it of other details that you never would have known if you didn't look behind what was just appearing to be there. And so my dad really, what his gift was, is making ordinary moments into extraordinary experiences because he understood the power of telling a story and listening to other people's stories and then sharing them. And decades later, storytelling is a very vital part of my life. I'm a writer. I love to tell stories. I was in grade 1. I remember my first book that I wrote, and I would fill pages and pages and pages of stories. Like it was always a part of who I was and what I loved to do from a very young age. And I really feel like this connection comes from my father, telling stories and really making the human connection through that. And so he's also been known to tell the same story a few times. Like I'm telling you, I've listened to it twice. I hear him telling it a third and fourth time. And I don't stop him because you know what? He's a great storyteller and the story changes just a little bit every time. Just interesting enough that I'm going to listen again to hear how that story was tweaked. So I hope that all of this that we learned today and that I teach you guys becomes a vital part of your life, because after the training today, you're really going to see how social media is a storytelling platform. And when your story really takes flight, you can build relationships and the business of your dreams with your ideal customers. And that's what it's all about. That's really the purpose of social media. All right. So social media is a storytelling platform, but for most entrepreneurs, they use it as a sales mechanism. So whether you're an artist or you're a fitness coach or a photographer, your job is really to capture your audience's attention. So I'm going to pause for a sec. Is it getting all like fuzzy in the middle when I'm talking, or is it okay? Just give me, it's good? Okay, good. Just me. Cool. All right. So your job is to capture their attention through storytelling and really build a relationship with them so that over time, your audience really starts to trust you, because what you're constantly putting out there is stories about yourself And it's almost like you're able to talk to them as a friend and you're getting to know each other, except in a way, you're hoping that they're communicating back and engaging with your content. But don't be fooled, because even if you are putting posts out there, people are reading them. They may just not be responding yet. So what will happen is that over time, you'll build a relationship with them, and then they will be able to trust you and they can rely on you. And then when they know, like, and trust you, they will buy from you. So that's why the storytelling process is so very important. But most entrepreneurs don't see it this way. We can see it as a time suck. I don't have time. I just have to get my post up and out there, and I don't have any stories. Like, all these limiting beliefs or things that are like true, like they really happen, are can feel like they're up against us. So the most common reasons that we hear is, I'm not a great writer. I can't write stories. I'm not a great writer. Or I don't have a cool story to tell. Like, yeah, cool story, Ashley, high five. But I just don't have a story like that. Like, what am I going to tell people? I really don't have that. I have a baby. I change diapers. I make baby food. Like, I don't have a cool story. Which those are all cool stories. P.S. Anyone out there doing those things? There's lots of stories in there. I don't have time to come up with stories. When I attempt to tell a story, I don't get any engagement. So why would I keep doing it? So these are all the things that you may be thinking, and that's okay, because I'm going to show you the steps how to get over those things. And I just sort of call them writer's block. Like, if you don't have the proper tools to be able to sit down, like, nobody really sits, like, okay, let me rephrase this. I would say nobody can sit down and write a post and like just bang it out and it is like, whoa, that's perfect. But I will tell you, and I'm not saying I'm by no stretch of the imagination am I saying that posts of mine are anything like that. But sometimes I will have a thought in my mind and I will sit down and I can just crank it out. And I'm like, like angels, like singing from the heavens, like it's perfect. But I'm telling you, that's never consistent. That does not happen on a daily basis. So there have to be, I think, for all of us, I'm sure you guys feel like that happens to you too. There has to be some sort of consistency in which you sit down and you're able to pull out a tool and you're able to practice and get there. So here's the thing, is that decent storytelling on social media leads to sales. And we've just talked about a little bit about why. So even if you got 10% better, like let's say right now you think about a scale, on a scale of 1 to 10, I am a 4 with my storytelling. Let's say you decide, you pick a number, that's where you're at. Even if you just get 10% better and you become a 5 out of 10, I guarantee you that your income will also improve by that percentage. Like, stories are what sell. So that is, if you guys are to think about that for a second, write that number down or think about it wherever you're at. And then by the end of the call, I want you to think about what is one thing that I can implement that Ashley has talked about that's going to get me that one bump up. Because 10%, if you do that, like coaching for yourself every month, 10% adds up. Like, that could be an extra vacation a year. That could be extra date nights out, or it could be a new workout wardrobe. Like, it can add up quick. So storytelling, though, is a muscle. And as we know in the fitness industry, that means that you have to really practice and you have to show up. And wishing it would change doesn't help. It's the actual practice of doing it that will change those results for you. So storytelling on social, do I actually need to do it? Like, I know you're telling me I need to do it, but like, back it up. Like, why do I actually need to do it? So as business owners, what happens is it's easier to write captions that ask our followers to do something. So if you want, you can say things that are easy, right? Like, work out with me, join this challenge group, buy from me. All those things are easy, right? They're at the tip of our tongue. They're easy to throw out there. It's easier to ask people to hire you, to buy your products, to book a session, but just because it's easy doesn't mean it's effective. We have to take a step back and understand, what are we really asking our followers to do? You are asking them to invest in a stranger that they've never met, right? That's a pretty big deal. So we're asking them to invest their hard-earned money with someone on the internet that they've never met. Like, that's a crazy concept. But the crazy part is we have the power to build trust by allowing people to get to know us. And that trust is what converts followers to customers. So if you're not seeing that transition of followers to turning into customers, storytelling is where it's at. So the reason that this actually helps with sales is our brains become more active when we tell stories. So we all enjoy a good story, whether it's a novel, a movie, or simply one of our friends explaining what happened when they have an exciting story to tell us. But why do we feel so much more engaged when someone says, "Oh, I have a story to tell you," right? Like, you get on the edge of your seat, you're like, "Okay, yeah, what happened? Tell me about your day. Like, what went on," right? So hearing a narrative actually lights up a part in our brain that actually makes us think a different way. So if you've been in a PowerPoint presentation before with a bunch of boring points, there's only a little bit of your brain that gets activated, right? It's kind of like, oh geez, when is this over? Like, you're like, hurry, like, I'd like this to be done, right? Versus when you tell a story, it actually hits the part of our brain that allows us to feel empathy and emotion. So if your story is painful, or it's about love, or it's about triumph, when you tell your story, your customer or follower reading that story, if you tell it in the story, a storytelling format, will be able to feel those emotions through you telling it. So your story can put the whole brain to work. And when we tell stories to others that have really helped us shape our thinking and way of life, we can have the same effect on them too. So what I mean by that is anything you've experienced yourself and which you turn into a story to share with your audience, you can get others to experience the same thing. So think about this for a second. If you're, let's say, someone that has a story about, getting your life back and being able to go from a non-active person to someone that all of a sudden was able to run around with their kids and they didn't need to nap during the day, and it helped get their depression under control. And you're telling this story, that other person on the other end hearing that story is going to feel those emotions of like, there's hope for me, and wow, like, it's a heartwarming story, like, this is what I was able to do. You will start to be able to, it's almost like putting a mirror up in front of them and showing them what's possible. But it's super crazy because you're doing it through like actually impacting that person's emotions, right? Like, super crazy stuff. So let's go on here. Okay. So the reason that the story does have such a profound impact is it helps us relate to that same experience. And when someone feels like, if we talk about the definition of building rapport, it's feeling like you have commonality with someone. Before someone will buy from you, they need to feel that they like you and trust you and have commonality. That's what rapport is. So in order to do so, when you share the same experience through a story, people will trust, like you, and they'll want to buy from you. So the next question comes, but what if I don't have any complicated stories? Like, I don't have anything about, a family heirloom. Well, it actually turns out that simple stories are better. And the great news is it's easy to get intimidated and to think you have to be this fantastic storyteller, write great captions on social media, and always have like the next story rolling. But simple always wins. And the truth is that the simpler the story, the more likely it actually sticks. So using simple language is actually the best way to activate the brain. And as business owners, if we speak from the heart, it resonates far better than a perfectly written sales pitch. This is actually a trick. If anyone follows Marie Forleo, I'm a big fan of her podcast. I listen to podcasts all the time, try to compile all of it in my training. And one of her golden nuggets is to write like you speak. So whenever she sees something like words that are like I will, she'll join them together to I'll. Because that's how you speak and that's how you talk. And that's how you can build more rapport through your writing, is if you condense that. Instead of trying to craft this perfect sales pitch, write how you would speak. And that helps make it feel more authentic and true to who you are. So there are 3 parts to this storytelling business. And these are the 3 parts that you will need to learn to storytell like a mother trucker. So part 1 is actually getting clear on your story. And don't worry, I have templates and handouts to set you free. So don't feel like you have to write everything down here. I'm going to give you guys all of this stuff so that you have templates to follow through with. So the first part about how to storytell is actually to think about your story itself. And so there's going to be a series of things I'm going to talk about when you think about your story. And the first one is you want to think about making it personal. And so now you don't have to necessarily be the main character of the story. These are my 2 sisters here. But your audience should understand why you're telling your story. Even if it's not about you, you need to make sure your audience knows why it's personal to you. It could be about a cousin, friend, sister, mother, etc. So the story to me, I was thinking about this, like to try to give you guys an example. And I thought about this picture here, actually. I was in Napa Valley with my sisters, and we had gone there to go to my cousin's wedding. And what actually happened is that I think it was 3 days or 4 days before, the wedding had got called off. So this whole story of like, you know, you can look at a photo, and I mean, again, like I get the fact that sometimes not everyone has like looks at a photo and they're like, oh, that's the time my cousin canceled her wedding. Cool story. Let's talk about that. But I will tell you that as I look through photos, I will remember things that I wouldn't just remember on the spot on my own. So that is a good method to go back and look through your photos. You'll remember, oh, wow, that day, this is when this happened. That is a story. That is a simple story. And as long as it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I love a good life lesson. If there's a life lesson in there, like, yes, like I love that piece of it. You want to use that as well. So that is how you can sort of take your photo album and really make it personal and think about some of the stories that you already have. Part number 2 here is to have a clear goal with this story. So what I mean by that is that why are you actually telling this story? Ask yourself, what do I want my audience to feel? What do I want them to walk away from the story with, and what action do I want them to take? So I'm going to give you guys an example. I did a post yesterday or the day before. I think it was yesterday. And it was it was sort of like a letter from your daughter. And it was all about, the purpose of that letter is that I wanted people to read that and remember, the post was about sort of going through, like we have all these negative thoughts in our head, like 60,000 thoughts a day, 75% of them are negative. And that's just how we're programmed as humans to protect ourselves, the fight or flight response. So I was talking about the fact that sometimes it's easy to get like, oh, like I feel like, oh, I don't want to, you know, I know I need to lose weight. I don't feel good in my body, this and this. And the letter was really about like your daughter, you know, or kids or, you know, whoever, they're always watching. And whether you think they're watching or not, this whole journey to self-love is more important than what meets the eye, because you can't fake it in those moments that kind of the truth bubbles to the surface, if that makes sense. And so that was sort of my goal in this message, was to help women remember that loving themselves first is really, it's a practice that takes time, but kids are always watching. Like our kids are always watching us. So that's why it's so important that we love ourselves first, because if we can do that, then we can teach our kids to do that too. And that's so very important. And so that's what I wanted my audience to feel, like this importance of, this is why body image and having a positive one on ourselves is so important. And so what I wanted them to walk away with from this story is to share that movement a bit, like share it with more women, because the more women that feel good about themselves, the more that we can stop focusing on how we look, and we can do more important things. Like we can work to change the world in a positive way. That is really important. That is what the message is about. What action did I want them to take? At the bottom of that post, I said, share if you agree. And So that is the sort of clarity that you want to be able to get from your post, is know exactly what is my message, what do I want them to walk away with, and what do I want them to do? Because if you don't tell them, they won't do it. So really being clear about what those intentions are and goals are. The next one is to really tailor it to your audience. So people have been telling stories since the beginning of time, right? This is how many things were communicated before we wrote things down on paper and had computers and all those sorts of things, right? So over half of our conversations come in the form of stories. We're constantly craving this authentic connection, and stories allow us to connect with one another because they convey emotion. They're memorable, informative, entertaining, and relatable. I always like to think about Netflix. Like if I'm thinking about a show that I really like, it's because there's this like authentic connection there. If I don't connect with a show right away, I'm like, meh, nope, not going to watch that series. So it is this really important connection that we get. And stories really provide a sense of purpose, and businesses with a purpose that help them stand out above their competitors. So as humans, our decision-making purchases are driven actually much more by emotion than data. So that's why tailoring this to your audience, knowing what is going to connect with them, being able to get in their skin and really like feel those things that they feel. This is where, you know, those thoughts that like roll around in your brain that you're like, oh man, that's so embarrassing. I can't believe I just thought that. Write that down. That is the stuff that stories are made out of, right? Like I'm talking like, you know, the embarrassing thoughts, right? When you do something and you're like, oh man, like I never want to tell anyone that. Like those are the things that we all think about. We all have those thoughts. And when you can nail those down, and I would just have a journal, be writing those down, but just like hide it somewhere, right? Like I remember having a journal as a kid, and that's where I wrote all my embarrassing thoughts. And like I would burn it after I was done with it because it felt vulnerable, right? To have those thoughts there. But that is the stuff that connects on social media. And Michelle File, if you guys have ever seen her post, she did one on, it was so great. It was such a amazing post. It talked about how someone called me chubby today and that I shouldn't be taking selfies of myself and that I'm not a good mom and da 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 da. It was me. And it was like beautiful. It was so beautiful, like home run. Those are the thoughts, right? We sometimes think about those things. Those are the maybe embarrassing is not the right word. I think maybe raw and authentic thoughts rolling around our head. Those are the ones that if you can nail those, your audience is like, oh my God, like she gets it. Like someone understands me. That's how that authentic connection is built. The next part is to be relatable. So your story is only effective if you've been able to share something that your audience can relate to, can empathize with, and can convey a sense of purpose. So it's really important that you know your ideal audience and what they'll be able to connect with and relate to. Next is to make sure it's humanizing. So people are much more inclined to get behind a person than a business. So humanizing your brand is really an important part of that. So that's why, like, if you're a business on social media, you don't always just want to be posting your products like that, you know, like that won't sell. It's about humanizing. It's not about you as a brand. It's about you as a person, as an influencer. So don't be afraid to share the struggles, the setbacks, and your wins. Your audience really wants to see that perseverance and that passion and the hard work that went into starting whatever journey it is that you're on. All right, next part here is to be really clear and focused. So everyone has a story, but if it's not communicated clearly, then your audience won't be captivated by it. So make sure you have a story that's really easy to follow. It should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if it's confusing or ambiguous, then your audience will likely lose interest in it. So make sure it's really, really clear, crisp, and focused. And then lastly here, it has to be visually appealing. So as you guys know, social media is all about visual stimulation. Like to see something and click on it, you have to be visually, it has to be visually appealing for you to want to dig deeper into it. So you only have 1 or 2 seconds to grab someone's attention before they scroll through to the next post. We have 1 second to convince them to stay on your image, to expand that caption, and to swipe through, if you're on Instagram, on your carousel, or comment on your photo, your Insta story, boomerang. So it's not a lot of time, right? We have so much content reaching us on a daily basis. We have begun to rapidly consume it. So in order to have people engaging more and scrolling less, you've got to first connect with them through your imagery. They've really got to feel that image. And this is what is called visual storytelling. There we go. And your photos are really key. And your Instagram feed is basically a visual magazine. That's how you want to think about it. So that the images that you post are super duper eye-catching. And it's not that you have to have like a professional photographer go and do everything, but you do have to be intentional about how your photos link together. And that is the next section of our call here, all about how to put together this visual storytelling. So this is a checklist that I have for you guys. So I'll make sure to post this after the call here. But this is all those things we've just talked about. It's really helping you hone in on those on each post to make sure you're really making sure you have a clear goal, it's engaging, it's educating, all those things we've just talked about. So part number 2 here is visual storytelling. So I'm going to walk you guys through. This is like gold. When I came across this, I just absolutely loved it. This is all from Jasmine Starr, and she is a storytelling expert. She talks about 9 different posts. So if we're talking, I would use this on Facebook and I would use this on Instagram. Instagram obviously is a little bit different, right? Because you have your 9 posts that are put together. But this is like a beautiful, beautiful harmony of photos and how to put it together. And I have examples. Like this is just, I love it. Okay, so I'm going to say photo 1 of 9 is a photo of you. And so what this looks like, obviously she's got this photo of herself, but then she kind of talks about a couple of different things to link in the image here. She says, want to know something spooky? Your days might feel long, but life is short. You know that project you want to start, you know the marathon you want to train for, you know the poem you want to send to your mom, you know the website you want to create, it's there, just waiting for you. And then she goes on. But each one of those little sentences is a bit of a story, right? You're following the bouncing ball, like the marathon I want to train for. Yep, check. The poem I want to send to my mom. Check. Like you're going through those actions and emotions in your head as she's telling the story. So 1 of 9 is to focus on you in your feed, and that helps build trust. 2 of 9 is behind the scenes at work. So what this can look like is something that you're doing that isn't all of you, but it's something that you have going on that is sort of like, it's this curiosity marketing, right? Like something that is going on that you're doing behind the scenes. So this one says, 1 big fat thank you is in order for those who completed the 5-day Revive Your Facebook Challenge. So proud to see entrepreneurs step up and make the commitment to market their businesses, not just Instagram, but Facebook too, for massive growth. So again, this curiosity marketing, it's like behind the scenes, but it would be like thanking your challengers or thanking someone. So it's sort of like, you're not putting it right out there what it is, but you are talking about your business behind the scenes as if they're an insider, right? So that's what she's doing here in this image. The third one is her dog. So obviously, like as we're going through this, guys, like some of these are going to be really relatable, but if you don't have a dog, then that's okay. Like you can pick something else to be of your 9 posts. Number 3 might be your kids, or it might be something else that your audience will connect with. So for this one, she says, he fills my heart without trying. Am I the only crazy pet lady here? What animal has your heart? She talks about, for her dog posts, she's always asking for engagement. So she's telling them what to do. And so people will comment when you tell them what to do. So that's how she brings the engagement forward. And that's how the algorithm works, right? When people engage with your posts, you ask them to engage. Facebook and Instagram will show it to more people. So that's why asking for engagement is so important on social media. You want to make sure you tell them what to do. All right, the next one here is actually on, for her, it's on travel. So again, you don't have to pick this category. Maybe you pick something else, like maybe it could be nature. It's something that has to be appealing to you and to your ideal audience. Or maybe it's something like funny, like, I don't know, like shit my kids say or something like that. It could be like really cute and funny, like you just play with it with your personality. But for her, she does travel. So she says, quick poll. In October, I see 3 types of people. Are you, give me all the pumpkin spice lattes and Ugg boots, please? B, I might carve a pumpkin for Halloween if I'm in a festive mood. Or C, wait, it's October. Where did the year go? I'm planning a trip later this month and I realized I thought it was September. Who are you this fall season? Again, she's telling a story through all those options and then asking her audience to engage. Next one here is food. So that would be an easy category for fitness coaches to talk about if they were into food or different types of shakes, that sort of thing. And I really encourage you guys to use curiosity marketing, meaning like I would put my shake in a, like not, when you think visually appealing, you got to think like, what would I be attracted to? Would I be attracted to a shake in like a nice cup, or would it get my attention if it was just in a shaker cup? Like, what is my audience going to appeal to? And I think looking back at your stats and data is really important here, because for some people, like it may totally work one way, but for other people, they may need to jazz it up a bit and make it look like, you know, like something cute, like cocktail hour, and it's like a protein shake or something, right? So you've really got to play with it and understand what your market will respond to. So with this one, she says, I wake up and crave vegetables, I said. She rolled her eyes. Really, I insisted, I love leafy greens. And right then I realized how annoying I sounded. Ugh, who wants to hear about my love of broccoli? But it's also time for real talk. I also love cheese and champagne. So there. And she goes on, I grew up obese, so my adulting eating habits are driven by optimal health, soul, fuel, and balance. Like, I love this post. I think this is like, as a fitness coach, like, this is beautiful. It has a storyline. It has that, like, you know, thought in your head that kind of rolls around like, oh, I'm so annoying when I say I love vegetables. Like, I'm sure people find that annoying. And then talking about why that thought came there. So she brings us on this journey. And I think that is, I want to keep reading, right? Like, she talks about being a bubble sommelier and a cheese connoisseur. Like, those are the real details about her that it makes me want to read more, because I see like she's a real person behind the images. The next one she talks about is the beach. So she says, what's the best thing about your city? I wake up to the smell of salty air, walk away along the bay every morning, and love my abundance of yoga studios in my hood. Are these ridiculous reasons to love where you live? Perhaps, but for most of my life, I lived amongst smoggy streets and graffitied walls. I watched my parents lose their home to foreclosure, watched my dad skimp together rent for an apartment, cried when it was burglarized that Christmas. And then she goes on, like, again, simple picture, there's this whole story that unfolds behind that you want to keep reading. All right, and then next one is me again. So she does another post about herself, talks about being a visionary, but it keeps her face behind her brand, right? There's no talk about here about what her brand even really is, right? It comes up when she talks about behind the scenes, and then there's client projects. That's where it comes up again. So this one for her focuses on, are you in? Want to see how I repurpose my social media content across all my platforms? This peek into my personal plan ensures I don't spend hours wasting time on my Instagram and instead maximizes my marketing efforts. I'll be showing you my social marketing calendar live on Facebook. And so she goes on and talks about her business. But so she's bringing it back in, but adding value. Like, that's the one thing that you'll really notice about these big influencers. They spend a ton of time adding value, and they see their purpose as someone to serve their audience and add value versus asking and taking. There's a big difference when you have that shift. And then the last one, so this is the 9th post, and I'm going to show you guys what this looks like as well. She talks about her weekend. So she talks about Oh, no, go back. There we go. I wouldn't say it was an anxiety attack, but I woke up with shortness of breath and the desperate desire to clutch my laptop to my chest. I woke up to a million thoughts on my to-do list. It was Saturday morning and all I wanted to do was work. I created a mile-long list of things I needed to do. And then she goes on. Again, it's not a caption like, hey, like hashtag like Saturday fun day or like drinks by the pool. It's like she's telling us a story of what is rumbling around in her head. So I looked at that and I thought, man, thank you for making that so simple. Like 9 posts, these are the themes that feels really reasonable and something that I could bite off. So I loved that. I thought it was fantastic. Now there's also this really, really cool program. It's called Plan. Let me just find out what it's called here. Planography. Plan. Plann, and it is for Instagram. And what you can do is you can pull your photos around and you can see what the grid looks like. So that is how you create these visually appealing images to pull together, is having a look at what it looks like and making sure, like she's using the 1 of 9 rule here with those different themes we've talked about, but also like you can see there's lighter images on the bottom and then darker images on top. And in like, it almost looks like X's and O's board because in the middle is dark as well. So it's well done, like well placed. So it's just something to think about visually, because on Instagram, like that's your bait, right? That's how you're getting people to stop. So I have this visual storytelling grid for you guys. Again, another tool that I'll give you guys after the call. So to write down the category, like whatever your categories are going to be, and then the photo that you're going to use. So you can start to plan out a little bit more and make it really simple for yourself. All right, and then the last part here is we're going to get into copywriting. So I'm going to tell you guys the best definition I ever heard of copywriting, which just hit the nail right on the head, was about copywriting should be like throwing someone in a cold bucket of ice water. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means that if you've heard something before and you catch yourself writing it down, throw it out. Like throw it right out, because guess what? If you've heard it before, other people have heard it before and it's not going to catch your attention. That's why I am like are you on a health and fitness journey too? I hear that all the time. So it doesn't stand out to me. I instantly think that is a robot. Like, or that, and so even if you still like use that sort of stuff, that's totally fine, but change up that one line, because then I won't think that it's like one of the like people just sending out mass messages. As long as it's different, it's going to get my attention. That's the important part with it. So when it comes to copywriting, these are like, I love these examples. So this one here is a post with a caption, take me back to Bali immediately, if not sooner. Not great, right? Let me show you how we can get this a little bit better, right? So don't get me wrong. I'm sure we all would love a trip to Bali, but how is this photo going to sell something like a bathing suit or grow their business? Because chances are that caption is really not going to gather the attention we would want it to. Remember, you want to take people's emotions into consideration when you're creating your content. So now if they posted that same photo with a different caption, it could be something like this. Our latest collection of bathing suits are inspired by the sunny summer months in Bali, where we stroll in the sand in the early mornings, bask in the sunlight in the afternoon, and picnic at sunset while the waves crash against the shore. No matter what your beach adventure looks like, our bathing suits are the perfect summer accessory. Like in your head, you're like, okay, I'm walking on the beach in the morning, I'm afternoon, I'm sitting in the sunlight. Like you're going through those motions in your head, right? I'm taking you on a journey. That's what the copywriting is really about. And then this is a sort of comparison of 2 here. So this one, oh no, that's the, hold on, that's the good one. One sec. Okay, so this one says, and I feel like I look at these captions sometimes and it's really like, when you really stand back and look at it, like I'm sure we can all agree, like we've all done this before, right? We're like, I just got to get something up. And then you have this caption and you're like, yeah, I know that's not going anywhere. So it's like, take a step back and, because if it's not going to go anywhere, you might as well be intentional about every post. Jenna Kutcher talks a lot about that. Be very intentional, because every picture you put out there tells a story. So this one says, the prettiest drinks in town. Doesn't really leave much, it's not really taking me anywhere, right? And then this one, I love this one. It says, Happy National Tequila Day. Kick back and marvel at these beautiful grapefruit and ginger palomas by at the Margarita Mom. And then it has the recipe. Like, I am thinking about going to the liquor store and getting some tequila and some orange liqueur and making this up, because she's just given me the recipe. I'm just planning my afternoon as this is taking me on a journey. So that's really where the caption and the copywriting come together. So this is a little worksheet for you guys, and it's all actually a lot of the worksheets Jasmine Starr has come up with. So I just have these for you guys, but she's created a lot of this stuff. So these are some different samples of an unengaging caption. Love my morning smoothies. Visit my blog for my favorite recipes. And then here is the storytelling caption. Birds are chirping outside my window, and I've lined up my fruit for my morning smoothie. The secret to amazing texture, adding almonds to extra crunch. I'll add the recipe here in the caption. So it's taking them through a bit of a story, even if it is a simple caption. So I'll make sure you guys get a copy of that as well. So guys, as we are closing this chapter, you can be funny in your stories, you can be serious, you can be whatever you want, as long as you're creating content that people can relate to, feel inspired by, and connect with. And the next time you step outside, listen to the sounds you hear, take in the colors and the textures, and tomorrow wake up a little early and write down a few memories you have of starting your business, some successes and some struggles, and figure out what your visuals are and see how your story comes together. So I want to just tell you guys quickly about, so everything you've learned today is coming up actually in my next Done For You. So I've been asked so many times for this, so I'm really excited that everyone is so excited for this. It's the Done For You Transform 20 launch. So obviously everything is going up December 4th. So we're going to be starting before that. I believe we're going to be starting it might be, I'm thinking November 26th, but I actually might start a little bit earlier. So I'll keep you guys, actually, you know what? November 26th is the date we set. Yeah, we're going to start then. So it'll give us some lead up time before we actually get really into things. And we sort of are priming our audience, because that's what that initial period is about, right? Is really priming your audience before you kick it off. So November 26th is day one of the 30-day Done For You Transformation 20 launch. But I told you there was a special thing I was going to do for you guys, because I love Success Fit. I am going to be, for the first 200, I don't know if you guys can actually see this. There we go. For the first 200 people that get into the group, I'm actually going to give you guys 45 days. So you'll get 45 days of Done For You posts for Transform 20 for the same price. So for $30, you're going to get 45 days. So for the first 200 people that decide to jump in on that course and get down to business, you guys will be included in that special group. So what I've done here is I have my link here if you guys register for that. I will make sure it is, I'll populate it there in Success Fit as well. And I'll just make sure to throw it in the chat. So I wanted to answer any questions that you guys have. I'll stop sharing the screen here for a sec. And I'll see if there's any questions here in the chat. Oh, when do you guys sign up? You guys can sign up right away. So I will, as we're just talking here, oh, I can't minimize while I'm recording. Well, that is inconvenient, Zoom. That is very inconvenient. Okay, I will put it in the chat here, but then I'll also make sure it gets posted on SuccessFit. Does anyone have any aha moments? Like, let's chat here. What do you guys think? Is this relevant info? Does it feel like in line with what you guys have been learning at Summit and all those sort of things? What do you guys think?
I'm sure people are going to type in there, but I have to say, like, the examples you gave were so helpful. Like, to see, like, when you're talking specifically about the 9 different posts and to actually see it in place was what gave me aha moments. So thank you for that.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. Anyone else have any aha moments or questions or anything like that? It's awesome. That's a good sign. Unless someone's typing in the chat right now, then I take that back. Oh, love the copywriting comment. Oh yeah, throwing someone in a bucket of ice water. Yeah, I love that. When I heard that, I was like, that is copywriting at its best. She does a TED Talk. I think it's called, I want to say Attack on the Bland. She does a TED Talk and it's phenomenal. I would highly recommend it. If you look, War on the Bland, that's what it's called. Really, really great. I would highly recommend that one as you guys start to get into copywriting. And Darlene, I just started using my Facebook memories to jog me on telling stories for Instagram. Oh, that's such a great idea. Yeah, nice job, Darlene. That's awesome. She's using your, her as memories come up, being able to share and talk about those. Great idea. Is there a way to shuffle your IG story viewers? What do you mean story viewers? Does anyone know what that means? Bria, do you know what that is? Instagram story viewers? I don't know if I've heard that term before.
I don't know either. Do you mean